All right. Oh, we can't access. Oh, okay. Said it couldn't access it. Now it's accessing. Bet. All right, let's do it, man. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to what is this? Well, this is the Just Action podcast where all we do is take action. But we have a new segment called The Great Journey, where we're having conversations with real people who are on the journey to whatever their success is. And today we're doing our first virtual one. We have a great friend here who's overseas, and we'll get into it and learn a little bit about that. Please welcome
What's up,
everybody,
guys?
Ahmed. Ahmed, what's going on, man?
Yep, my name is Ahmed.
How you do? How
Good,
you
I'm
doing,
good.
man? Oh, my fault. Go ahead.
I'm doing good. I'm
Yeah, because this
calling from Egypt, baby. Calling
back
from
back
Egypt.
leg. Go
So
ahead.
I appreciate you, waking up early to accommodate for my time. But I'm doing good, man. I feel good. I graduated like 5, 6 months ago from med school, so I've been really just unwinding really hard and chilling with family lately. So it's been really nice and relaxing. But thank you for having me. I'm excited to hopefully share my story, have some conversation.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I'm excited. This is dope. This is dope. Somebody from in Egypt too. So,
I've been
how
here
long have you
about
been over there
five
in Egypt?
months. Like right when I graduated, I was like, first thing I'm doing because I was going back home, just relaxing a bit.
Yeah.
I get like 6 months off before I start work. So I was like, I'm gonna take it to the fullest, do all the things that I didn't get a chance to do when I was in med school. But
Yeah.
it's been nice.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So, med school just finished. How you feel? I know, that's probably pressure in and of itself. I felt amazing when I graduated college, but to stay a little bit longer for med school, bro, I can
Exactly,
only
literally, like
imagine
a
the
weight
weight
off
off
my
your shoulders
shoulders is
right now.
exactly what it feels like. But it's exciting, It's kind of sad because in med school it's always like, what's the next step? It's like, oh, I graduate and oh, I match into the program I want, and you're always looking ahead into like trying to accomplish something and be the next type thing. And it's great when you reach that
Hmm.
milestone, but I've just been trying to like enjoy the journey throughout, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I graduated, I'm about to start work in Chicago in about a month or two. But just trying to like stay grounded because it's always going to be something, in this field. You always got to keep moving with it. So just trying to enjoy the moment while I can.
I like that, man. And what are you
Yeah,
specializing in?
so I
What you go to
just got
school
my
for?
residency accepted into a pediatric program, so I'm gonna be working with kiddos for the next 3 years, which is exciting. You know what I mean? I feel like it fits
Nice.
my
Nice.
vibe. Like
Yeah.
kids, very impressionable from a young age. Not only can you help treat them and but you can like be a role model and teach them. Don't do this, don't do that to avoid diseases in the future. So I'm excited about it. I'm stoked. Finally.
Right. Yeah. That's actually dope. Yeah, man. Because I was with kids a couple years ago, like when the pandemic hit, I started coaching and then got into
Mm.
actual like teaching assisting. But like you said, getting around kids and they be able to kind of show them the path and the stuff that you wanted to learn and nobody really taught you, you can kind of give it back. So that's really dope.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be in Chicago. Chicago's a great
Thank
city, so I'm excited for you, bro. So normally I do when we start these, I'm doing a background check just for the people who don't know him, Matt. It's like if you were walking down the street, you get to talking to somebody, it's a deep conversation. Somebody's like, "Hey, who's Ahmed? Like, who are you? What's that? What's
All
that
right, I
story
like
like
that.
for you?"
The way I would respond, or the way I'm gonna respond, is someone who really tries to learn from other people. I feel like, we're in this journey. A lot of people, they feel like they're playing this, video game, on solo mode, and everyone's like an NPC. But I've been trying to like really like by understanding everyone's story and everyone's perspective, I really feel like it adds to who I am as a human being. But overall, I feel like I'm a pretty carefree guy. I like to learn things, do things, hang out with people, and I don't take myself too seriously. So, and I'm a bit of a goofball too. So that's why I appreciate your channel. I feel like, I mean, like, why people take themselves so serious these days? You know what I mean? Just like do your thing. Yeah,
Just
exactly.
stay goofy at this point, you know what I mean? I like that, and I like your thought process with the NPC and everybody's trying to say like they're the main character in every story because everybody is a main character in their own life and own way. Like everybody has their own journey where it's like yo, this is my life. Hopefully you're looking at it that way. So everybody else in regards to your life is probably not gonna be the main character. But the fact that you're able to have those that thought process to be like, hey, I'm gonna have conversations with everybody. I'm gonna figure out what your life story is, and that's kind of what this is, where you're just figuring out like, hey, what are you doing with life? Because in the grand scheme of things, everybody's on their journey, on their path to like become successful in whatever facet that is. And for you to be like, yo, I can gain something from you, I can gain something from you that will impact my life. I think that's huge, and I think that's a big part that people don't really
Yeah,
understand. They're always trying to do it by themselves, you
absolutely,
know?
absolutely. I agree 100% what you're saying.
Yeah, nah, I like that. And with you having this carefree mindset and like kind of, in the same aspect where I'm at, where I'm just like, hey, stay goofy. Like nothing's too serious. Like, of course, I'm going to learn. I'm going to try and be like the best me. But at the end of the day, like, I still just want to enjoy life. I don't want to take it too serious. Where did that kind of process come from? Where did you get that aspect of kind of a carefree life? Was that something that you had as a kid? Is that something like once you got into adulthood and you kind of realized like, hey, life is a little bit too. I'm too pressured right now. Let me take a step
That's a
back.
great
How
question.
did you come
Honestly,
to
like
that
when you were
conclusion?
asking that, I was trying to like I kind of like realized the answer when you asked. I never really thought about it like that, but and that's the beauty of conversations, you know. But I think it really stemmed from my youth and growing up. I was born in Egypt, but I spent like my formative years living in Canada, living in Minnesota, moving to Virginia, a little bit of California. So I was always somewhere new, and I never really had like a stable kind of area to grow up in. So I guess every time I went somewhere, I try to find ways to like fit in and adapt to the culture. And what I found was it was easy for people to like me or to make friends if I just kind of was goofy and I was, silly and I was just happy and carefree. And I think that that kind of stuck with me growing up, and it helped me kind of figure out. And now that I'm slowly understanding who I am, I like that part of me of who I am because I also now in the adult work field, I see everyone taking themselves so seriously. So I'm happy I'm able to maintain that youthful energy, that carefree mentality of like, who cares if you judge me in your own way? Like, if you judge me, that's probably projection of your own insecurities. So I'm happy with kind of how I've been.
Hmm.
Like I'm glad that my upbringing it was tough. Like it kind of sucked. I was moving from place to place, but it forced me to learn to kind of be adaptable in that sense.
Yeah.
And now it's one of like my core guiding principles. I'd even say.
Yeah, and that's big because I mean, listening to that, I kind of have a similar experience where I was a military kid. So I'm traveling place to place. You're just always moving. You're never in one spot for too long. But I guess in the same regards, you find this thing that everybody's going to adapt to you if you're just a cool, goofy kid, like just relaxed, laid back. You can fit in pretty much any crowd that you go to. So I guess that comes from like just moving around a lot and kind of exploring the world. And you said you've been a lot of places, bro. I didn't know you went from Egypt to Canada to Minnesota to California to Virginia. Like, what was the best place for you? Was that all during like childhood, right before
Yeah,
college?
so
How was that?
childhood was mostly Canada and Minnesota, and then high school slash college was Virginia, and then half of Virginia I was half of college I was in California. But
Hmm.
since then, actually, like after graduating, I like moved to Dubai for a couple years with my family, and then I half of my medical school experience was in Australia also. So luckily, I've had a really cool exposure to a lot of different areas in the world as a child and as an adult, and I really think that that has played such a huge role also in like who I am today. And I think not everyone has the opportunity, the blessing to be able to do that. But I think whoever has the chance to like really like immerse themselves in a different culture, there's so much to learn, and like you realize that like we're in this little bubble that is the United States, and once you kind of like look outside, you're like, oh, like a whole new world, like.
Exactly, exactly, man. And right when I graduated in 2019, and I made the like bold decision to try and go play basketball, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give this a shot. And I was able to go on like a European tour. So I was in Europe. That was my first time really going overseas to like play basketball. It wasn't like just to explore the land and all this other stuff. So when I left, it was amazing to just
Mhm.
like one, get outside of the country, two, play basketball, but three, kind of just see the differences of life. Like all I've seen is states, even though I lived in Germany for a little bit, but that was when I was like two, so
Mm.
I don't remember any of that for real, for real. But to go over there and kind of just see this. like you said, a whole new world. Like to see these people live life differently, to see the culture, and it's like, oh, this is nothing like any. Like, of course,
Mhm.
each state has a different way of living, but like to see a whole new country, like a whole new continent, like it's insane. And it's cool that I've had the opportunity to travel, and you've had the opportunity to travel because you get that culture experience to kind of just see the lay of the land, and there's more to life than just the United States. There's more to life than just going across to California or Utah. Like you can go to other places, but for us to have the conversations to kind of explain, why and kind of encourage people to go, I think is huge because it shifts your mindset. You kind of expand, like you say, you're in this bubble where all you know is the United States. All you know is probably English. Like, and of course, I went to England, so I was still speaking English. But like, imagine you go somewhere else where maybe you have to learn a different language. I couldn't even get language out. I don't even look at me. But like, you try to learn a different language, and you just realize that like, oh, like I went to Mexico and I didn't know a lick of Spanish. I took 4 years of Spanish and didn't know one lick, and I was like, yeah, hola, okay, I have to figure this out. Like, exactly. So I like the thought process and kind of just getting open and expanding that bubble, and that's also like expanding your comfort zone. Was there with med school, did that kind of help you increase that comfort zone expanding? Because I feel like, yeah, with college, you have to kind of expand and you meet different people, but you've kind of been around, traveling to different places. Once you got to med school, did that kind of expand your comfort zone where you're like learning something that I feel like
Yeah,
totally
actually,
new?
that's a good way to put it. And it kind of, so the idea is like, with traveling and doing that, I got an opportunity, like, I got like a taste of like something different. And that was like, I want to learn more about this. I want to do more about it. Like,
Yeah.
I want to explore this more. And so it becomes, part of your hobby. And you start even exploring that even when you're in the United States. You start like talking to people and like trying to understand truly their cultures and whatnot and trying to add that to your own. And in regards to the academic component of it with medical school, I think part of it, yeah, because with medical school, like it's medicine, the human body. Like there's so much, and it's impossible to even understand like half of it. You know what I mean? And so the whole idea is it's just that journey
Right.
of trying to learn more each day and become more knowledgeable rather than trying to know everything, which is I think people are trying to be like, I'm an expert, I know all this. So yeah, I think
Hmm.
it goes hand in hand because I've been able to use that mentality in trying to learn every day and trying to add to what I have, that 1% gain and whatever I'm trying to understand, into also understanding people. Maybe I'll understand like this individual a little bit better, or like this culture a little bit better. Even like my mom, like talking to her today and like trying to like understand her psychology a little bit and trying to like cater to her a little bit each time, and not trying to feel like I need to like set like a
Right.
goal or like I need to like understand this much. It's just like always trying to like be like a sponge and absorbing a little bit, and it's hard, and I know medical school was great and I'm super thankful for it, but there was also a lot of times where it was extremely toxic and like prevented me like very detrimental towards my mental health and whatnot. But I think those ups and downs really helped kind of like give me perspective kind of in like what my passions are, and I'm glad I did it. I was in Australia during COVID and it was crazy. I couldn't leave Australia because
Right.
it was like lockdown. um, and I was able to kind of like connect with like my cohort, and like we kind of like gain resilience through difficult times or whatnot. But yeah, it's been an amazing journey and very, very much
Yeah.
learned a lot through it.
That's so dope, man. So you're in Australia.
Yeah,
You've just been around, man. That's
I'm telling you,
awesome.
I'm
I'm trying
tired.
to get
Like,
like you. I'm trying to get around. He's like, I'm at home chilling now, man. I'm good. I'm relaxing. So, like, even in that process where you're saying like, it was really good times and it's really bad times, right? But those difficulties, the ups and downs, kind of build the passion for it. If it was just the steady stabilizing, somebody would be dead, right? You
Mhm.
have to have that heartbeat where it's kind of going up and down. What kind of got you through those down parts? What was your mental like when you're pushing through those
Absolutely. And
difficult
yeah, I
moments?
agree. I mean, if it's all easy times, it's not going to be worth it. You know what I mean? And so, like, to have those difficult times really puts things into perspective. And I think for me, perspective was the big thing. First and foremost was really being vulnerable and allowing myself to receive help and ask for help from people who love me and were close to me. And so then that was my key thing really, because a lot of people try to, solo video game main character, no, not ask for help, take care of it on their own. But that helped me out a lot. And so I even like started doing therapy when I started medical school, and I started looking into different meditation and different breathing exercises, and that really was kind of like what clicked with me. I remember it was like COVID, and there's like this show called Midnight Gospel. I don't know if you know heard about it. It's a shameless. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
love that with
That
Duncan Trussell,
show
right?
so started all for me. It started all
Yeah,
for me, and
yeah.
each episode, talking about like different like very core component like having these conversations with people, but it's like kind of animated in a funny way where you can like kind of watch it and like eat snacks with it. But it's like taught me the idea of like perspective, presence, and like where you
Right.
just take time to really like feel within your body, and just like that it kind of like washes away like the stress that you have. So I started off with that. That was like my initial like stage of like, what can I do when I had this overwhelming stress from everything going on, COVID, I haven't seen my family, these exams, the pressure, relationship issues, and like how can I kind of navigate it? And I realized it's like just like kind of like letting it just like wash by just like being really present with different meditative and different breathing exercises. That was really what helped me out a lot. And I had a background in that a little bit in regards to like being raised Muslim and seeing the benefits of praying on a semi-consistent basis and how that can kind of ground you and whatnot. And so that spirituality really helped me out a lot. And
Hmm.
that's kind of those are two of the main things really I use to kind of like help guide me like in those difficult times, and also just had the perspective that you know this too shall pass. Like it's tough right now, but with like each corny, but like each closed door opens up, and it's gonna get better as long as you maintain your
Yeah. Yeah. And
perspective.
those like cliche lines, more times than not, they do sound very corny, but like when you actually live them, it's a
Yeah.
reason why like people say them all the time because it's so true. Like you sit there and you might tell somebody like, "Hey man, this too shall pass," and they're like, "Man, I've heard that 1,000 times," but
Uh-huh.
it's like, no, but you haven't lived it though. When you start living it, it's like this too shall pass, and you've actually made it through the storm. You came out, it's like,
Hmm.
wow, I actually got through that. I'm actually like living the dream I want to, or I'm actually through the nightmare that I thought was just going to be forever. It's like, yeah, that's why it's so cliche, but it clicks. Yeah, it clicks. It clicks. And I'm listening to you, man, and your dialect and like your commentary is pretty advanced. Like I believe like in the things that you're discussing and the things you're talking about, not only NPC but kind of the background of meditating. You say you're practicing these things, and even with like spirituality, you've kind of gone a little bit down that rabbit hole and kind of understanding it from like just my perspective and listening to you. When did you get started into that? Like, how did you? When did that actually begin for you? Was it in those dark times when you're practicing, like you're going through it in med school? Was it a little bit before that, and you kind of referred back to it because you've already gained that? Like, how did you come to that? Because I feel like figuring out how to get there is like the first step for a lot of people when there's, like I'm saying, tough times. You don't really know what to do. You don't know how to get out of this situation besides listening to these cliche quotes where we're just saying, hey, you can just get through it, just push through. But like actually having those practical steps of like saying, yo, I got to it by starting here. Maybe you read a book. Maybe it was, like you said, Duncan Trussell. I just want to know kind of what was that origin story for you. So if somebody was listening, could say, hey, he started there. That's where I'm gonna start. And maybe it compounds. You just
Absolutely. That's
learn one
exactly
thing, you
how it
start
was.
taking
It
it
was
from
just
everything.
the initial taste of it, and then I was like, "Oh, this is really cool. I want to explore more of it." And so I guess it all kind of started. I've like appreciated meditation and whatnot. Like I saw people doing it, um, but really, it really did start with Duncan Trussell and the Midnight Gospel, and it was not to, like spoiler alerts or whatever, but like in one of the episodes, they go through like a meditative practice, and you try it and you practice it, and it's like literally the whole idea is you just sit there, close your eyes, and try to feel inside your body. You feel start with your hands and move up, and just have that presence. And from that moment, I remember doing it, and I was just like, wow, like I feel like this just like shifted my whole like everything, my whole psychology, and so that's what I like that got me into it. And so then started adding on, trying to learn more about like, okay, you can do this,
Hmm.
these breathing exercises, and then I started like adding more into it. I was like, read about like Wim Hof and how he like does these like ice bath immersions and these and hyperventilating and holding your breath. And so it just kind of started cascading. Really, it started with like one small. I didn't like honestly. It was like the show came out like 4:20, and it was just like me and my friends were like, oh, let's get high and check out this trippy thing. And I never would have thought this would kind of like inspire me in that way.
Right.
And so then I started like talking to people and trying to like trying to like learn from them. And that's why like I'm very happy to like talk to you about these kind of things because I'm adding upon to like my own my quota or whatnot. But yeah, it just kind of started like that, and I just
Yeah.
wanted to do more and more of it, and it really the first step is all it takes, and the benefits have been huge, and that's why I've been doing it more. I'm still like kind of a beginner, like it's been like only like 3 4 years since I've been like actually trying to like learn and practice it, but like there's so much to learn about it, and there's so much benefit to doing it, even to the point now where I even started getting into like flotation therapy, like the sensory deprivation chambers, and
I was just about to ask you about that, bro. I was just about to ask you because I
Mhm.
wanted to do because I remember we was talking about it, and I wanted to ask now that I finally got you like on camera, face to face, like, yo, how is that? Because of course I'm meditating too, and you kind of do these things where you kind of feel these out of body experiences. But I can only imagine being in those floating tubs, like the the
Thanks.
feeling of it. So please, the floor is yours. Please explain a little bit
And
of
yeah,
it.
it all started. It was really just a friend who recommended it to me. And I remember when he first told me, I was like, what the, like, no way. Like, this is stupid. Like, it's kind of weird. It's like some Stranger Things type stuff. But I decided to just like judgment free and give it a
Hmm.
try. And the first time, honestly, wasn't really that good. I had like so the whole premise of it really is it's like this big chamber, this big like mini pool type thing, and they fill it with Epsom salt so that your buoyancy you float on it. And so the whole point you lay there and then you kind of turn off all the light. There's no sound, and so then you completely deprive yourself of your sensory input. So you can't see anything, hear anything, smell anything, etc., etc., etc. And even the water is body temperature. And so the whole point of that is the body is always having sensory input, like the brain, even when you're just like laying down, like it has the input of I'm laying on a bed, this touch on my arm, on my back. And so the whole point of it is to like completely turn off all those sensory inputs to then be able to reach kind of like listen to your brain to kind of like relax like to a deeper level without being asleep. And it was fascinating. The first time I did it, like I couldn't really do it that well because it was like kind of like awkward, a little bit claustrophobic, and I had like a cut. I like shaved, like the day before. I had like some burn,
Oh,
like
so
a
you
little bit
probably
on
had a
my face, and I
burn.
was like, this sucks. But then I tried it again, and it was mind blowing, and it's just like it really like each person comes out of it with a different experience. But for me, it was very much like a perspective type thing where like I was in there for an hour and a half, and in my mind, I was like, that amount of time could have been like a flight from like New Orleans to Miami. You know what I mean? But like, I was in there in that state of mind to the point where
Hmm.
it didn't feel like anything. Like, it felt like just like that. Like it didn't feel like an hour and a half because I didn't have anything to relate the time to. Because like normally so like it made me realize like, oh, what is
Yeah.
time? And I just had all these like thoughts. But I think a lot of people like it's beneficial to everyone, and it might be some people might not be good, some people might be good for them, but I just like my thing is I'm just like give it a try, see if you like it or not, and then go from there. For me, I love it, and I miss it so much because I haven't found a place here in Egypt. So definitely planning on doing that when I get back to the States.
That's dope. So you do it kind of frequently. How often do you do it? Or like
It's
when you
expensive,
were
not gonna
able
lie.
to?
Like it can be like I bought like a package of like six, and I like split it with my friends, and it was like 60
Okay.
bucks a sesh,
Yeah.
with like the big package deals. But for me, it was worth the investment because I was like, like I do it and like rejuvenates me, and like I start like realizing like things that like I haven't really even like put into words before. But I was doing like personally like once
Right.
or twice a month. Some people do it a lot more often than that, and I would do it more if I could have, but I had to be semi-frugal since I was a broke med school boy trying to, you know.
Yeah. That's dope, man. I really like that. And I'm gonna go ahead and figure out a time to do that. My birthday's coming up end of the month, so
Yeah,
I think that's
man,
gonna
I
be the gift to
highly, highly
myself to go ahead and
recommend it,
try
and you
that
gotta tell
out
me about how it
for
goes.
sure. Oh yeah, for sure. I'll probably try and vlog like what I can and put the camera out there outside of the tub with
That could be
just
good,
complete
honestly. Like break the
silence.
stigma, like show people like what it's actually like. Because a lot of people are like, "Oh no, I can never do that. Like, I'm scared of the dark." And it's like show people like well, this is what it's like to make it
Yeah,
seem a lot more accessible for other people who might be scared to try it.
that's true. Because I ain't gonna lie, I was hesitant. Like I wanted to do it for a long time, but I think like you telling me when you told me about it was kind of the confirmation because I felt like I was gonna lose my mind going in there. Like it's just dark, it's quiet. Like maybe because my mind just fires off all the time, all the time. I'm just now figuring out. Like I think the last month, like I used to have trouble going to sleep without like probably a TV. Like I just needed something to keep my mind like because if I had a TV off,
Mhm.
mine running. I didn't know how to shut it off. So I felt like at first to go in that tub, I wouldn't know how to shut my mind off. Like even though I was meditating, I could do that for like 20 minutes. I'm in there for like an hour and a half. Like my mind's gonna figure out how to get back going. Like, hey brother, we
All
we
about
gotta
practice.
get back to something. So I was nervous at first, but yeah, definitely gonna give that a shot. Definitely gonna give that a shot. And through that conversation, I like your the way you look at things, also in the aspects of like, yo, judgment free zone and try everything once. When you were saying that, I was thinking of my girl. She always tells me like, food wise, she'd be like, oh, I'll try everything once, just to
Mhm.
don't turn anything down because you never know. At that point, did did you always have that kind of mentality of like not try everything once maybe but like just the judgment free zone and we're just gonna try everything because that's where honestly in the phase I'm at
Mhm.
now even with this podcast space like this interview-a-thon thing I was like hesitant at first and probably not judgment wise but in the sense of like maybe I can't do this but try everything once motto was like yo why not try and interview somebody who's overseas why not try and pack your schedule with as many interviews as you can and conversations and this, that, and the third. But to have that open mindset to be like, yo, let me try. And then whatever comes from it, not having the perfectionist kind of ideology. Did that kind of happen for you or how did that kind of come up where you're just like, yo, I'm down to try it out, see what happens and,
Absolutely. I
let
think
the
the
chips
way it
fall where
came
they
up
may,
for
where
me
they
is
be.
kind of like the bit of like the opposite where I saw what I didn't want to be, I saw people growing up who were really stubborn and set on their ways. They're like, I know what I want, I know what I do, and so I'm not going to do anything different than that because I know what's best. And so I think I that really turned me off. So I remember like
Mm-hmm.
one of like my guiding like one of the things that I really like emphasize and I think is really like important like people who I really respect and I talk to and they emphasize this is the idea of like humility and that like corny cliche, like a fool thinks he knows everything and a wise man knows he knows nothing. And so the idea of like that there's so much in this world that we don't
Mm-hmm.
know and there's so much that we won't know and so just being completely open to all experiences because we don't know whether we're like it or not. And so I think that seeing how people were kind of really set in their ways, I was like, no, don't want to be like that. Don't want to be stubborn. So let me just try everything. And so yeah, like when I like travel, I'm like, let me do everything that the people there do, even if it's like kind of weird, like I was in Australia, like all my medical school cohort, a lot of them kind of like grouped together with like the rest of the Americans. Which was cool and it was comfortable. But I was like, that's not why I came to Australia, you know what I mean? So I was like, let me go to this, Australian festival with a bunch of Australians and camp out with them and just like kind of see how they live. And it was crazy and it was amazing and I was so thankful for that. So that's kind of a big way of living my life in regards to like I know I don't know everything, but I just want to learn as much as I can, and I'm not gonna be stubborn about it. And if I try it and don't like it, so be it. It's like I think it's better to like try something and then not like it than to let the fear prevent you from actually ever trying it. Um, Whatever the stubbornness is going on.
Yeah, I like that. And even with the thought, like thinking back to it of just like, you're letting the fear
Yeah.
of the unknown or the fear of what if kind of stop you from what it actually probably is. Because your brain is going to go like 10,000 times probably worse than what it actually is going to be. So if you just try, you're like, oh, it wasn't even that serious or that bad. I think that's one of the big things, especially for me sometimes where I'm just like, man, it's gonna be terrible, it's gonna be awful. And then even simple stuff like if I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, I gotta work out, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be terrible. Like I'm imagining like excruciating pain. I can't walk, this, that, and the third. And I go work out and it's like, yo, this was the best thing. Like, why don't I do this every day?
Exactly.
And it's just like you got to get past the mental barrier first to kind of get to, the life and enjoy the life that you really want. Is there any oh, I have this new segment that I really want to do. So in these conversations, I'm asking all the questions, right? I'm trying to figure out who you are. I'm like trying to have, this deep dive of who the guest is. But in that, everybody has something kind of special, kind of unique that they can teach me. So the segment in this is kind of called Teach Me Something. So is there something that you're kind of going through, something that you feel like you're not a master at, but you're really learning that you just want to get off your chest and kind of teach somebody? Or it could just be something that you're reading. And I like the big concept of you learn twice by teaching somebody. So if I read something, I might just be like, yo, let me just tell you this so I can like reiterate it back to myself and kind of understand it that way. So the floor is yours if you
Absolutely,
have
and I agree with you
anything.
100%.
Teach
And
me
that you
something.
like in teaching, you will learn, and I think that's a very important thing to do. And like kind of talking about things. But I guess one thing that I feel very strongly about is the idea of like gratitude. And I just like I've learned like throughout my past few years that
Hmm.
like I really feel like it's one of the most powerful human emotions, and it can really help kind of like reset, your mind, reset your brain, um, because like it's easy to get lost, in the sauce in regards to like our own lives and what we got going on. Oh, this sucks, this sucks. But to really like one thing that really started me, I remember I was listening to like a TED talk, and there's this guy who was talking about this thing called the stop, look, and go method. And the whole premise behind it is like that so often we are just like caught up in the robotic, nature of life, do go to work, go to the gym, etc. We don't really take time to like really just like, but like it's just like every once in a while, stop, you look
Yeah.
around and just like feel your different senses and have gratitude. And then after doing that, you move forward. Um, and then it's kind of like you can kind of like think about like all the bad things that haven't happened to you yet or haven't happened to you, and think about how if they did happen, how how you wish you could be in your current situation. You know what I mean? It's a kind of like you like frame shift, and then you'd be like, oh wow, I'm
Ooh.
really thankful for this. Like I'm glad I'm stuck in traffic because I'm glad that something terrible, aka didn't happen to me. Not to get into details, but you can like your own way. I think that thing has helped me out a lot, and like that
Yeah.
concept of gratitude, and it's even like it's brought up in a lot of like different like animes where it's like I'm able to reach my final form by having the gratitude and love of everyone around me, and I really think it's a thing, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I guess that's my little teaching moment type thing. But I'm still, and I also want to emphasize that like I know I'm happy to be like talking about these kind of things, and I know like what I'm saying might seem to have like be a bit more than some other people in regards to meditation and whatnot. But like I truly am still like learning, and I still struggle a lot. Like I'm currently struggling with a lot of different things in regards to like balancing social media and like happiness and being like not having a routine. And so like I think vulnerability also has been something that's been really important to me. So yeah, gratitude and vulnerability.
I like that.
Yeah,
We're gonna
I
dive on
got
those
all
because I
day,
like
baby.
those
I
too.
got
So
all
I'm
day.
about, yeah, let's perfect. So with gratitude, are you having kind of like a daily schedule where you kind of set out certain times, or do you just find those moments? So like I have both where I feel like, oh, so one thing, priming with Tony Robbins, it does a little priming thing where you kind of set up your day. So instead of it's meditation obviously, but he calls it priming where you're the creator. So you're kind of setting your mind to think about the positives. Think about three things that you've done that were really good in your life, three goals that you want to accomplish and they're already done. So he just calls it priming. So that's one thing that I do. But I've also like life hacked where I was catching like the angel
Mm,
numbers like 111, 222. I just start putting them down as alarm clocks so I can catch all of them. And then I would just manifest or speak an affirmation at that time. But there's also times where like I'm stuck in autopilot and I'm just going with life. And one way that I come back to that like stop, look, and go is I just take a deep breath through the nose. Because more times than not, when I'm in autopilot,
mm.
mouth breathing. I'm just thinking, But then it's like, oh, I'm back. Okay, cool. So is there any ways, or when you're expressing that gratitude, or you're getting back into that state, do you have set times where you kind of do it, or is it kind of, you get lost and you find your way to come back by saying like, oh man, I wasn't even
Yeah,
away. I
great
wasn't even
question. And I
aware.
think the hope is to do it like consistently, but that never happens. You know what I mean? We always get lost in the sauce. For me, like when I try to
Yeah,
catch myself like
yeah.
in a moment where I feel like a sort of like angst or a sort of like tension or like a negative emotion, that's when I'm like, whoa, let me try to like practice this. But what you were saying with the priming is like absolutely is one of my friends, she told me about this app, 5 minute journal. And the whole premise of it is in the morning, you go on your
Hmm.
phone or whatever, and you write down three things you're grateful for first thing in the morning, and then you write down like three affirmations, and then at night you write down three great things that happened to you and how you can improve on the next day. And you do that like first thing in the morning and last thing at night. And I think it's so crucial because when you first wake up, your brain is like so like impressionable and it's like you can easily you know that like that's like a critical moment. And so a lot of times like I'll wake up in the morning, first thing I'll do is like check my phone, go on social media, do all this stuff, and I'll just shit. And then that'll
Yeah.
continue along the whole day. But I find myself the days where I start my day with the gratitude journal, and just write. It's simple. Like, oh, I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my blah blah blah. And you like think about it, and you're like, oh yeah, like I really am grateful like to be alive. Um, that really like it cascades into like
Exactly.
a like that really helps me out a lot. And so I think doing it first thing in the morning and then like last thing at night, also reflecting on it, I think is so crucial, and it's been really helpful for me. But also, I just want to mention something about you, like the whole nose breathing is like I got really into that like a couple of years ago because I've always been a mouth breather, and I have like I have some like trouble breathing through my nose. I have like some like
Yeah.
medical stuff like a deviated septum and turbinates or whatever, so like it prevents me able to breathe properly through my nose.
Okay.
And I was able to like I just really tried to like practice it a lot because like I like read this book called Breath, and it's like it's talking about like the benefits of breathing through your nose and like all this type of stuff like that. So I started like even practicing like taping my mouth shut at night and breathing through my nose. It's crazy. It's
Yep.
crazy. It's we as humans have evolved to do so much, but we like forget to do like the simplest things. Like we all like kind of forget how to properly breathe and how to properly eat and how to properly sleep. Like the simple core components of things. Um, so yeah, definitely as great that you like that you're into the whole breathing stuff and like breathing through the nose. Definitely a thing. I'm trying to practice it right now. My nose is all stuff.
Yeah, same. I'm over here just breathe. That's so funny. And then with the vulnerability side, like being open to be wrong, being open to like accepting loss. You know what I'm saying? Because more times than not, people try and go through this, like, back to the NPC and main character life. You think the main character is just like this glamorous life where you're always winning, and you just see the good parts of the movie, not realizing that movies are pretty much sped up to kind of catch the
Mm.
important scenes that's going to make you stay. Where are you being practicing being vulnerable outside of work? Because obviously with work, you figure out, hey, like I'm not going to know everything. You go into pediatrics, yeah, I just got out of med school, but I have to be open to be vulnerable to people, accepting me for what I'm doing, where I'm at this point, and growing forward. But like in life in general, how else are you practicing that
Um,
vulnerability?
I think a big part of it really is the idea of like kind of how I started realizing it's important first and foremost is seeing like the amount of like toxic masculinity in Eastern culture specifically. Eastern males like the man can never be like sad or vulnerable or even not know anything. Like there's so many times like it's crazy. Like you'll be walking around Egypt and you'll ask someone directions somewhere and they won't know, but they can't admit that they don't
Hmm.
know, so they'll just tell you some random shit with sheer confidence, and it just blows my um, and so I was like, I do not want to be like that. Like, I think being able to say I don't know is crucial because if you say you don't know, then you'll be like, oh, let me like look this up later on, rather than kind of having this like stubborn like I know everything mentality, which is like kind of like sad because like it's so clear, it's so evident that humans are so flawed innately. And so to think that you're like this perfect, level 100 main character, that's gonna be the theme of the level 100.
Exactly.
All the
That's gonna
stats,
be
all the
the
way up,
title
all the
of the
buffs,
pod.
and the best skill. And that's not realistic. So
Exactly.
the way I practice vulnerability really is just like kind of with my friends and be like, listen, like I'm depressed as hell right now. Like I'm super sad. Like I'm going through this, I'm going through that. And then even like talking to a professional, like therapy, and being like straight up, like I have these problems. Like I like have this, inside of me, this like sadness, or I have this like addiction, or I have this like whatever's going on, and being vulnerable about it and talking about it. Because in doing that, you realize that everyone is super sensitive and super vulnerable themselves, but they're all kind of trying to put this like mask on, like they're trying to be like all like tough and stuff. But like in showing vulnerability, you're able to receive it back, and you're able to realize that everyone can kind of like find some similarities within each other. And so I think that's like the first step. And I know you didn't mention talking about it in medicine, but I think it's important. It's a huge component of medicine in that you show vulnerability to your patients and show like, hey, listen, like I'm a human being. I'm not just like this like big shot doctor. And by showing them vulnerability, you're able to then connect with them, and they're able to see you as another human being, and then they're able to share kind of how they feel as well, rather than them feeling like there's just like, oh, like this like class based conversation.
I'm glad you brought that back in, and I didn't even think about like associating them together. I don't know why I disassociated it, but in that aspect in regard as well, like even with work, that makes so much sense to be vulnerable, right? Like you're going to get a better conversation, you're going to get a better interaction with other people if you're just one of the people, rather than saying like, yo, I'm big shot here or I'm big shot there. Like even when you're refing, like you don't want to be the guy who's like, yo, I'm the ref. You want to be the person who's like, yo, I'm just like y'all, man. I'm gonna call it like I see it. I'm gonna miss some calls, but you're gonna miss some shots, and it's just like we're gonna figure it out together while we're on the court. That's huge because nobody wants that class differential, especially when you're discussing like jobs and helping somebody with their life. So that was actually big.
That's
I'm
crazy you
glad
bring that up, because I
you
remember
brought
one of
that
my
in.
first memories of you is being a like early on at VCU, and you being one of the refs, and like I think you and Ajmal, I think you guys were the refs, and I was like, damn, they're cool.
Yeah,
But I remember at that time I was also like really like a like a like a jealous type, and I was like, man, these guys don't even care about refing right now. They're not taking these intramurals seriously over here, like trying to like flex on like these people with these joints, but playing flag football. That's all I had,
life was on the
man. I was
line
like,
in
my
intramurals
high
back
school
then, man. It
career,
was serious.
didn't work out for me. I'm not gonna be able to play college sports. Like, this is all I got. I took myself way too seriously.
Exactly. It was serious. I took it serious too. I was like, you know what? It got so serious for me. I ended up making
Yeah, yeah.
the club team for the basketball. I was like, man, I'm not gonna be on the yeah. Let's make club and let's travel. Let's go ahead and try and play some other teams. I really love this conversation, man. And normally, what how I like to end these, the teach me something was kind of the way I like to end them. But I also like one-liners. Obviously with my page, I do quotes and all this. Is there any one-liner? You've had a couple cliche quotes in here too, so we're one and the same, brother. Is there any final kind of one-liner, one thought that you kind of want to leave an
Absolutely,
impression
absolutely.
on
And
with the
when you told me
people?
about this meeting, about this talk, I was like, let me like kind of write down some of my thoughts, like look through some of my old notes and whatnot. And so I guess a corny one-liner,
Yeah,
it comes from the book The Four Agreements, which is really great and helped me out a lot, and I highly recommend it as well. But it's just always do your best. Um, Corny cliche, you hear it all the times, but like you don't, it doesn't really click until it really clicks. But I think that being one of like is one of the agreements in the book, and I think it really helped me out a lot, specifically because being able to do that, it leaves no room for self guilt or self judgment, because like you did your best, and you're able to be happy with whatever result it comes. And so that's a big part. Is like I'm always super hard on myself. I'm like, I should have done this, should have done that, comparing myself to this other person who did super well on this exam and I didn't. But I think that's one thing that helped me out a lot too, and that a lot of like my like self hate or self judgment stems from like not accomplishing what I want to accomplish. But if I'm able to just say that I did my best and enjoy the process, then that really nothing else really matters. I mean, you did your best, bada bing, bada boom. So that's my last big one-liner.
I like that.
Always
That's
do
a
your best.
I like it. Hey, ta-da! I like it, man. Man, I appreciate you taking some time out. You know, I know you had a family event that's coming up
Yeah.
soon, so make sure you get prepared for that. But hey, man, appreciate you so much. Uh, we're gonna when you get to Chicago, let me know, man. I definitely have some friends up there, so I'll make a trip. We can kind of hang out, extend this conversation a little bit more, and just catch up on some things, man. But again, I
Thank you
appreciate you
so
so
much.
much
I
for
really
stopping
appreciate
by.
you having me on here. I think I like in talking to you, I was able to kind of like learn a lot about myself too. And I'm like, I'm gonna write some of this stuff down and stuff. But it's amazing what you're doing. Keep it up. Great work. Great questions. And yeah, definitely just the beginning, baby.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, everybody, please, if you took anything from this, one, breathe through your nose, but two, practice some gratitude, practice some vulnerability. Don't be an NPC, be a main character. But in all seriousness, hopefully you took something from this
Mhm.
that can turn applicable in your life. Get out of your brain and start doing things. Take action. Hence the motto, just action, and enjoy the journey all the way to the end. We'll see you when we see you.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace out. Stay goofy,
Assalamu alaikum,
baby.
my good people.